Button.
Hit the red button, make sure we see red.
We're live.
We're live. Okay. So this is actually, is this a Colt? Or is this a Dakota? This is a Colt. Okay. And I've just been handed this weapon, so I'm now going to click it back so that I can check it. Now here's what I'm doing. I'm checking in here to make sure there's nothing in it. Okay. Nothing in this weapon. Now this is someone else's Colt. I'm not going to dry fire it. Okay. You can also look here and see, here, come right there. You can see right there that there's nothing, there's no lead in there. Now, if I were to be really persnickety about this, which you would be on a set, you would come in here, you take that out, you would take this out, check it, and then, this is going to make some people squeamish, you would look down the barrel and see I'm showing myself my finger. Now here's why. Look down the barrel. You see right down the barrel?
Yes.
And I'm making sure that there's nothing inside there. Right? You see my finger back there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you do that. And then you would then, now I understand that this is a pain in the butt, but this is what, this gun's never been apart like that. This is what, come on you, just a minute.
I've never had it apart.
There we go. This is what, so I'm putting it back there. This is what firearm safety is all about. Now this is a single action weapon, which means pull the trigger, pull the trigger, pull the trigger, nothing happens, right? In order for this to fire, you've got to pull it all the way back. I'm not going to dry fire it because this is someone else's weapon and they probably wouldn't like that. But as far as you know, is there any way that if this gun had a bullet in it right now that it could go off without someone doing that?
No.
No. Okay. So these guns have a safety built. There's kind of a safety right there. The first click is a safety. Okay. So nothing is going to happen with this weapon. There's no way for this weapon to go off. I could drop it, which I will not do. Don't fret, Randy. But you've got to pull it back, pull the trigger. Okay. Now there is some thought to that Alec was fanning it. If I fan this, it's going to stick there unless I have my finger on the trigger, okay? So fanning it will make it stop here, or here, or here. This is very tough, well, there, it's a very tough spring. Okay, it's a tough spring because it does take quite a bit of pressure and impact and inertia for that to discharge anything. So that's how a single action weapon works. You can't accidentally pull the trigger. Now, if you have your finger on the trigger and you fan it, it will go. Okay, see? Because it's the trigger that releases that catch right there. I don't want to dry fire it, but
It'll be okay.
okay, so it's the trigger that releases that catch. All right. So the notion that this weapon could go off without somebody pulling the trigger is really hard to believe, okay? And while we're at it, in order to load this weapon, this is an intentional action as well. You've got to line this up. You can't load it if it's like that. You have to line this up, put a bullet in it, turn it, put another one in it, turn it, put another one in it, right, up to 6. Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of people will keep an empty chamber on one. They'll keep one empty chamber in there so that in case somebody hits that, I guess there's some notion way back when with cheap replicas that something could happen there.
Yeah.
But in order for that to happen, I'd have to drop it, or somebody would have to hit it with a hammer. But if I dropped it, it would fire up, right? So there's a lot of things we're told to believe that don't make a lot of sense. Now, I have checked this, and I have not put it down since I checked it multiple times. So my understanding is, and I'll take my finger off the trigger for this, that the gun was fired, it was cross-drawn and then fired down like this. In part of the interview, Alec is saying that she was telling him where to point, and that makes perfect sense. It makes absolute sense, telling him where to point the gun, okay? So in that world, if she were holding the camera, and I'm going to point this at your left hand, it is, I'm going to show you once again that it is, sorry, it is in fact empty, right? So squat down just a little bit. So if he was cross-drawing and then aiming it like this, she was telling him where to aim. Could be she said lower, 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 which kind of makes sense there now. And then the director might be behind her. You know, so she's here, the director's behind her. Now, this is total speculation, but she was shot clean through and it hit the director as well. In the shoulder, I think, in the collarbone. So there had to be, it had to be like this, okay? And so this is not a gun that fell on the ground. This is not a gun, even if I fanned it, remember, if I fan it and my finger is not on the trigger, nothing's going to happen. The only way that goes down is if I pull the trigger. So it's not adding up for me. And I hope it's not adding up for you either. Okay, this is a beautiful gun.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.